Hi, everyone. Kristen White here on The Ripple Effect. And, at this time of year, we always think about money. In fact, a lot of us think about money all around the year. Do I have enough? How can I earn more? Should I change my job? Am I saving enough? Money seems to be a really important topic at the front of many of our minds. But my guest today says that it's not just about how we manage our money, but a lot of our beliefs and emotions and ideas about our own self-worth that has a direct impact on our net worth. And that's the title of her book, Self-Worth to Net Worth, 12 Keys to Creating Wealth Inside and Out. And her name is Belinda Rosenblum. Belinda, thanks for being here today on The Ripple Effect.
Fantastic. Thanks for having me, Kristen.
So before we get started, I want to know a little bit about you and what inspired you to write this book.
Certainly. So I began this about 7+ years ago as a journey when I started turning down jobs as a financial advisor because I started to talk to people about money and specifically what their challenges really were and what their needs were. And what I found was that people often had, most of my clients are quite successful in everything else they do, so they likely have a financial advisor or a similar resource through their company, and they likely have a tax accountant, but that there was this whole world in the day-to-day finances that they were struggling with, almost like positioning me as a financial therapist of sorts. And so I just found this huge need to help people with both the practical aspects of what they need to do, but also with the emotional aspects. Because money is such an emotional business, but it's almost like we ignore it or we pretend and we think we're the only person that has emotions around money. And you'll know if you do when something small happens and all of a sudden you feel very triggered. And it takes you back to a past event. It takes you back to these feelings that you're like, wow, these are totally not in proportion to what just happened around money. And it can be as simple as you go to buy something and it costs more than you thought it was going to, or you go to purchase something and it's actually on sale and that sale triggers you to think, oh, I need to buy it now. And so as I started to first build this business called Own Your Money, and then next to really say, okay, how do I learn more about these emotional aspects because they're so crucial to people's success with money, then I partnered up with a therapist who could bring more of that understanding both from a psychotherapist standpoint, but also this one that I had worked with, Ciarico, also brought more of the body-centered idea. And because one of the other things I was noticing is that we literally will feel it in our bodies when we're doing things that don't align or don't feel right, and where we find ourselves emotionally struggling when it comes to money. And so I wanted to be able to bring that understanding to our readers, and so I thought how better than to address both the inside and the outside components of our money, and then I can learn more and I can keep sharing this and spreading it with everyone else who needs to learn this too.
Yeah, so, I really can relate to what you're talking about, and there's so many emotional, I guess we'll call them patterns around our finances. I mean, what are some of the more prevalent ones that you see? I mean, I've seen them, running out of money every month or just saving all your money all the time and never letting yourself have any fun. I mean, those are two extremes, but what are some of the main patterns that you see in people's finances?
Sure. So, yeah, I mean, I think the first one that you mentioned, that paycheck to paycheck hamster wheel, is one that probably, depending on the statistics, something like 76% of Americans live in that all the time. And what ends up happening is that becomes your comfort zone and that becomes your recurring pattern. So it's almost like even when you make more money, you just then tend to spend more money, right? So you continue that pattern. The other one you mentioned was that more about the scarcity in terms of spend?
Yeah, the other one I was saying is that, there are some people out there that, they make money but they don't spend it on anything. It's almost like I don't deserve, so I'm just going to save.
Spend, sorry.
Right.
Yeah, so the don't spend is often more geared to an underlying sense of scarcity that they were likely brought up with. And so in the book, I talk about how people will often match or mirror their parents or their environment, or if it wasn't your parents that brought you up, maybe it's your grandparents or some other things you saw in school. And essentially what happens then is that when you match it, you do the same thing. When you mirror it, you swear to do the exact opposite. And so oftentimes that sense of scarcity and not spending comes from an underlying fear of never having enough. And so when, our parents or our grandparents lived in this Depression era, and then all of a sudden that's how they're brought up, and they, I believe that they do the best that they know how to do, but it then creates this pattern in our life that unless we literally pattern interrupt it with some of the tools that I give in this book, then we just keep going down that path. One of the other major patterns, and I could talk about this the entire time, but one of the other major patterns is based on this underlying belief system that I'm not good at money. I'm not good at math, right? Everyone else knows what they're doing except for me. I should know what I'm doing. And when people just should on themselves, it takes them down the self-esteem ladder each time they say that. And when you actually believe that you're not good at money, then you take what can be a rather simple topic, once I get you with the step-by-step approach that will work, you make it really complicated. And so if we're able to disrupt that pattern as well and say, you know what, maybe I just never learned it. What do I need to know to be able to be more successful and to feel more confident with money? You open up this whole new world to a new pattern and a new level of confidence that you've just never allowed yourself to have before.
It sounds like, Melinda, that it really is never too late to put your focus and attention on your finances, and that's really part of it. It's like, okay, I'm finally going to look at it, and then I'm going to learn what I need to know to change the course and make it better. We're going to take a quick break. You're listening to The Ripple Effect. My guest today, Belinda Rosenblum. She's the author of the book Self-Worth to Net Worth, 12 Keys to Creating Wealth Inside and Out. And we'll be right back in just a moment. So we were talking before about the break, Belinda, about sometimes your beliefs and your patterns about money come from childhood. And it's interesting, I was working with someone and they pointed out something for me in my own life that, my parents were divorced. And that's something that's pretty common among the world today. And there was always this fight over child support. And there was a specific dollar amount. And my parents would go back and forth and say, oh, your dad only wants to pay this amount. You're only worth this amount. And that number became a set point. Just like it just was in my mind for a long time. And I never really realized it, that it just kind of sat there until several years ago. I was working with someone and they released the energy around it. Can you talk a little bit about the energy of money and how we can have blocks, both known and unknown?
Sure. It's so interesting. So I'm a child of divorced parents as well. And and as a parent, as a mom, it's interesting, he's only one, and I feel like I'm already starting to pay attention to what kind of an energy I'm giving out around money that he's picking up on. And I had my own set of beliefs that I generated around my parents' divorce. So I completely understand yours. And mine had a little bit of a spin of money was pain. They were both making more money, and as they made more money, it just seemed like they were spending more money on fighting. So that was the connection. That was the energetic connection that I made at the time was, okay, cap yourself at this level because anything above that will bring you pain. And there is, it's so interesting when I'll do workshops, and I do a lot of different speaking. And when I'll ask the group, what is money to you or money equals, it rarely ever comes up in the first 10 things. It's a form of exchange. It's usually happiness, freedom, confidence, fear, and it's all the things that either money can buy us or the emotions that money bring up for us. And so what ends up happening is that when we allow ourselves to stay blocked around money, we're essentially pushing away wealth. So for our entrepreneurs out there, you're likely capping what you feel like you're worth in the marketplace. So you're only charging X, and you need to be charging X plus another 40% or 50% or double. Right? And that's why the work that we do and the work in self-worth to net worth is so foundational to be able to allow yourself to make more money, and then secondarily to keep more of that money.
You know, yeah, sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you, but I just wanted to touch on something. I think that is true. It's like you see it, and I work with a ton of entrepreneurs. And when people don't charge what they're worth, then, you know, they experience this type of poverty consciousness. So especially we see it if people trade. It's like, well, don't really deserve to make money, so I'm just going to trade my services. Mm-hmm. Or, you know, I'm just going to charge you, I don't know, $50 for something that should be $5,000. You know, I just think that, and that's obviously an extreme example, but, you know, if you have an expertise, you have valuable information to share, especially if you're in the expert industry. You have to package it in a way that it is representative of the intrinsic value of what you're sharing.
And I think that you actually do a disservice both to yourself and to the person that you're doing the service for. Because then if you're in this laissez-faire, I guess it's worth $50 thing, then that's all they value it for. And I found it very interesting, even as I started to raise my own rates a few years ago, and as I continue to, the client puts more value and more time and attention to the work that they're doing because they believe they need to get the full value of what they're investing with you. And that more often, what ends up happening is that people are aiming too low, and then they're getting their low expectations, so they believe that that's all that there is for them. Whereas I would much rather see you aim high and really aim towards where you believe you're worth, and let's try it. Let's see what the marketplace says. And so let's say you're at 50 and you want to get to 500 as a start, and then we'll move you up to 5,000. Go from 50 to 250, and then sign up one client, maybe two. Then we'll move you to 350 or 400, right? So that each time you build your confidence, you get better and better testimonials, and you keep working at this next level to grow yourself and grow your own capacity for wealth and for really the level of value that you're able to deliver and to feel yourself. I mean, the last chapter in the book is essentially called Develop a Tolerance for Joy, because much of the time we're the ones that are capping our own joy and our own wealth creation.
Absolutely. You know, there is some financial education out there, but it sounds like what you've created with your Own Your Money program, that it's different. Can you explain how it's different?
Absolutely. So I find that so much of what's out there has you feel bad about what you didn't do in the past.
Isn't that the truth? Like Susie Orman, like shame on you, you know, and it's really negative.
Exactly.
Yeah.
I was just talking with somebody about the Susie Orman show because I was saying I'm sure that a lot of my readers and followers and even clients may watch that show. And so the problem is that you watch it and then you actually feel twice as bad as when you started. You know, and it's almost like my approach is exactly the opposite. It says, you know what, you never learned how, so it's not your fault before. Now, though, you have another option. Right now you have me as your teacher. You found me for a reason. You're listening to this podcast with Kristen and I for a reason. So what are we going to do about it, right? We have enough guilt in our life. We don't need to feel badly about the money decisions we've been making in the past. So instead, let's start with a clean slate and say, well, what do I need to do now, today? And then once you can start to change that guilt and shame and judgment that you have, and this is so foundational to all of my work, I literally have a program called Making Money Joyful, that once you can shift that to say, that's not really working for me. By being in the fear and the guilt and the shame, I'm just getting more of that. What do I want instead? I actually want to move to a place of joy and abundance and really making more money. So let me instead be open to finding my fastest path to cash, and let's go after that.
Yeah, absolutely.
It's like 180 degrees almost from a lot of what's out there.
Yeah, there is a lot of guilt, I think, about just about everything. Sometimes you even feel guilty for buying too many groceries at the grocery store, I think. So, it's guilt for crazy things. So we're going to take a quick break. You're listening to The Ripple Effect. My guest today, Belinda Rosenblum, her book, Self-Worth to Net Worth, 12 Keys to Creating Wealth Inside and Out. We'll be right back. Belinda, so before the break, we were talking about, your program, and you and I mentioned on the break a little bit about being an avoider. What is an avoider?
So I find it's interesting because a lot of people think, I procrastinate my money. I put things off. I have piles around. So I'm avoiding my money. And I find that, yes, you are an avoider, if you know what I'm talking about, and I am speaking personally as a recovering avoider myself. But also I think that even where we started this conversation around the pattern of people feeling like they need to hoard their money and not spend, they're even avoiding having any fun with their money. So I personally believe that everybody is avoiding something when it comes to their money, and that's why this understanding that there's this emotional component in addition to the practical component is so important, to be able to recognize, yes, you're avoiding, and what's it really costing you, both quantitatively, like in real dollars every month, and then also qualitatively, like what's the impact that avoiding is having on your life.
So let's talk about some of the classic things in finances, about credit card debt and leveraging yourself to grow a business, things like that. Where does that fit in all of this?
So foundationally, we need to clean up our relationships to money. And much of the time, they're just filled with these non-supportive, what I call BS, which is essentially our belief systems, but it's also the BS that we all know and love because it's not really working in our life. It's what we keep telling ourselves, and then that becomes the foundation for us going after the next job, for us building our businesses, for us even having conversations with our partners or our family about money. And so foundationally, first what we need to do is to recognize how to clean that up, right, and to get moving on that so that you're not bringing in this BS into everything and having it wear it away or almost like sabotage these great ideas and plans that you have. And then the second piece is really taking some practical steps. Most times people are avoiding the practical steps because they just feel like it's too hard, it's too complicated, I'm never going to get there anyway, so they just resign themselves and get to what's the point? And so a lot of my work is really saying, you know what, there is a choice, you just never learned it yet, so let's just teach you what you need to know. And just the other day, I was talking with a client who was in this Making Money Joyful program, and I had taught her in that program how to do what's called the snowball effect with credit card debt, for instance. And so she had kind of said, I guess I'm always going to have this debt. It's like a noose around my neck. And I said, well, what if that wasn't the case? Right? What if you didn't always have to have that debt? What if we could actually have it paid off in a reasonable amount of time? Because just the week before, I had created a debt payoff plan for somebody to pay off $25,044 in credit card debt in 3 years and save over $23,900.
Wow.
So I know it's possible.
Yeah.
Right? Once we do clean up the relationship part and then get moving on the practical steps. And so she said, I just never knew there was a way. Like, people think that the way they're doing is the only way it has to be. And what I've said is, you just haven't been taught it yet. So let's get you a plan and get you moving. And she was like, oh my gosh, I really can do this. It's just so freeing to know that I don't have to give up on myself. I'm not a failure because of money. And I'm free to go live this amazing life. And she said something like, it's really changed my life and what I'm capable of. So then that's where the ripple effect comes as we wrap this up, is that once she could shift her level of confidence around money and feel like, oh my gosh, I'm not a failure. I really can do something great. I really can take responsibility and clean this up, right? Then what's possible for me in all areas of my life.
Absolutely.
And really for your family too. It's one of the biggest ripples that matters to me in my heart, is really helping families stay together and not have money be such a cause of contention and even divorce, but really have it be something that allows people this amazing tool to be, do, and have all the awesomeness that they want to have in their life.
Absolutely. Belinda Rosenblum, she's again the author of Self-Worth to Net Worth, 12 Keys to Creating Wealth Inside and Out. And you can learn more about Belinda and her Your Own Money Makeover Kit on my podcast website. And Belinda, again, thank you so much for being here on The Ripple Effect, and I really enjoyed our talk.
Fantastic. Thanks so much, Kristen, for all that you do to really help people understand the ripple effect in their life and in this case, really take charge of their money.
Absolutely. Very, very valid and important for everyone to know. And to all of you who are listening, if something about this program inspired you today, all it takes is one word, one thought, or one idea to completely transform your life. So if there's something that you heard here, all that's required of you is to take action. And that's the key to moving forward in your life. So together, let's start a ripple, and I'll see you next time. Bye.